We're here today with Quin, who has only worked with us for 5 months as a dental hygienist, but the reason I wanted to speak with her is because in those 5 months, she has made quite an impact. Not only has she won the respect of her office for being a great hygienist, she's proving that she approaches her job as a real team player with a true ownership mindset. She even recently attended a company-wide manager meeting with over 25 other leaders. There is a lot we can learn from her, not only from her day-to-day, but how she approaches dentistry in general. So thank you, Quin, for being here. If you could start by giving us an overview of your background and how you got into dentistry, we'll go from there.
Okay. So the main thing is that this is like the real story, which I don't really share with everybody, but we were so poor. Like I grew up in the Philippines and we just couldn't afford like going to like a really good school. And my mom told me like, hey, go to the school where your sister and brother already go to. And so I was like, I literally have never heard of this university, but it's like one of the cheapest like university to go to. And I looked up their number one program, which was dentistry. So I was like, well, I guess I'm just gonna be a dentist then. So that's how I ended up being in the dental field.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't like in my mind, it wasn't like a passion or whatever. It's just like based on need, you know.
So did you study dentistry in the Philippines?
Yes, yeah. So I
Okay.
was a dentist there for a few years, and then I moved here, and I was a dental assistant for like the longest. And then eventually I got my hygiene license and I became a hygienist.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
So you had to start off as an assistant here.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then how long until you went back and got your hygiene license?
Oh gosh, more than 10 years. I would
Wow.
say, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the thing is that like Florida is the only state as I know that accepts the degree from another country as a dentist. Like if you were a dentist in another country, you come here,
Mm-hmm.
you go to Florida, you can take the board exams to become a hygienist.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's no other states that do that.
So how long were you a dentist in the Philippines?
Maybe like 4 years.
Really?
5, yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Did you work for a company there?
Well, my friends had a dental office, so I worked
Gotcha.
with them. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
So then when you were an assistant and a hygienist before you started working with us, it was with two different major DSOs.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
what was it like working there?
Oh gosh. So, it was good when you're, for me at least, like when you're beginning in the field here in the US especially, it was great because I got to do a lot of trainings. That's the main thing I notice about like major DSOs. They really invest in you when it comes to like training you,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I was able to meet a lot of mentors, like people who are in the top of the dental field, you know. So that's like one of the things that I really liked about working with a big DSO.
What were some of the downsides?
Gosh. Ooh, I think it can get okay. This honestly, I'm
Sure.
gonna like answer this. Okay, it can get more like production heavy. You know, the focus is more on like the dollar amount.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and also I noticed this especially the last 3 years. It becomes like a big separation between like a dental like dentist production and hygiene production. It's
Mhm.
almost as if it's like two different entities in a practice. And I wasn't really a fan of that because one thing for me, like how I look at things is that especially working is like a team effort, you know. I'm not just going into a dental office or like any kind of place where I find myself in, whether it's like working out or like my hobbies. Like I love working in a group, you know, and whenever there's a separation between the dentist and the hygiene, automatically the team members look at the practice separately as well. You know, does that make sense?
For sure.
Yeah.
How did you handle that then at the time?
I think I just focused on me. Like I can
Mhm.
really only control myself, you know,
Right.
I can't really control anyone else around me. So I just focused on like what I can do to change the culture of the practice. You know, that's one thing like like heard from a lot of my like previous coworkers is that like I really try to be a team player. And I try to make friends with them, you know, not just like in the office. Like I try to get to know them in an outside like perspective, you know, like if a dental assistant is having a party with their kids or whatever, like I go to like I sometimes maybe like I invite myself to
Right.
it, but like I show up, you know, whenever they like baby showers, stuff like that, you know.
So who would you say created that wall when you were at the DSO? Like who was creating the dentist versus the hygienist?
Yeah. Now I would say the management.
Right.
Honestly, yeah, I think it's the management. It's like, again, it's like just the focus so much is on production that they just, maybe it's not like an intentional thing that they were doing,
Mhm.
but it's a result of it.
Well, how were
Yeah.
they portraying the information to you? Like, how were they talking about production with you?
There's like meetings, like weekly meetings, aside from like monthly meetings, and we would have like weekly meetings with like just the hygienist, and then like we literally have to look at like production of another hygienist, like it's all in one paper, and I'm like, okay. And then like the dental assistants would have their own meetings, and then when we go over like our office meeting, they go over like, oh, this is what was produced on the production side and the doctor's side, and this is what was produced on the hygiene side. So again, like I don't think it was intentional, but that's a result of it, though.
Sure.
Mhm.
So, did you ever feel any tension with the dentists?
Great question. I think just in general, like my personality, I don't really like to have tension with anyone.
Mhm.
And so I didn't, personally, I didn't, but I know people who like went through that, who like
Sure.
have that experience for sure.
Were there issues such as, like, if a patient maybe did everything the hygienists were suggesting, they
Mhm.
wouldn't do what the dentist was suggesting if they kind of like capped out, or was there kind of fighting over who could see patients first?
I think it's more, and this didn't happen like very often, but it was more about like, let's say you know how like insurances have maximums.
Mhm.
And so like ideally, you'd want to take care of the hygiene aspect first, right?
Right.
And then sometimes, because let's say the treatment plan is more on the hygiene, it takes so much away from the max that the patient is allowed to use. There's barely enough for the dentist side.
Mhm.
Then that becomes an issue, because then, like production on the dentist side goes down.
Mhm.
I mean, but that didn't happen very often.
Right.
But maybe that would be one thing that would like really
Right.
like notice about it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So, how do you balance then the patient care versus the business
Business
side
side
of
of
it?
it. I thought about this before, because I feel like most people think there's a separation between the two.
Mhm.
But there was like one of my mentors that really helped me have a different perspective on it, is that when you focus on quality of care, the business side of it will just naturally flow.
Right.
And I honestly see that like where I'm at right now, like Winter Park Dentistry. Um, it's like you just go over what is needed for the patient, like what the patient needs, and they show up,
Mhm.
and now people trust us more. I've only been there 5 months, but I can feel it on the patients like comments to me, whenever I'm talking to them and getting to know them, whatever. Like some of these patients have been coming for more than 10 years,
Mhm.
and then they bringing their family, their friends, and they're referring so many other people. So I think it's like, as long as you provide quality of care, the patients will follow,
Right.
whatever the business part of it, the dollar amount or whatever, however way you want to like word that,
Mhm.
is going to match it.
Right.
Yeah.
How much less stressful is that for you now
Yeah.
to work in that environment?
No, it's so good.
Mhm.
Honestly, like one thing about me though is like I really try not to carry over like work stress to my like
Mhm.
life outside of it. So I'm pretty good at like managing that. But it's even better now. Honestly,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not making as much of an effort.
Right.
Also, I think because I work with like doctors that are so involved, not just on their side of the practice, but with like hygiene side as well. Like even everyone has bad days. I wouldn't say bad days, but like you don't remember things sometimes. You're just like tired or
Mhm.
whatever the reason would be. If I slip up, if I miss something, like my doctors are there right away. Like they catch it. Like they know, like, oh, did you go over this? I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Like I didn't, I'm just gonna be honest
Mhm.
about it. But yeah, it's like just they're just more involved. That's why I prefer that, because then it does relieve me more, like of stress, of like pressure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, what was your mindset coming into the our practice after working for such a large company?
hmm
Were you nervous or?
I think change in general is very nerve-wracking,
Mhm.
but I've like just based on like my life experiences, like I welcome it, and I embrace it. And fortunately too, like I have a friend that already works at Winter Park Dentistry, like at for Operation Dental, and so I've had like great feedback already.
Mhm.
So like I already know, like okay, no, I'm gonna be okay. I'm
Right.
gonna be okay. And then I met you, and it was like, oh no, he's a stand-up guy. Like okay, I think I'll be okay. And then I read your book, and I'm like, oh okay, I think I'll be okay.
That's
There's
awesome.
just multiple things that kind of affirmed, that
Right.
I know I'm gonna be okay.
So when you came in, how how would you say that you gained the trust of the team?
You have to ask the team that. I think that's a question for them. Like how did I do that?
Right. But I
Mhm.
mean, I just know leading by example is something you
Mhm.
do. And you mentioned
Mhm.
before in the previous position how there was tension, or like separation
Yeah.
between
Mhm.
hygienists,
Mhm.
assistants. How how do you work now so to avoid that, or how do we
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah. I think the culture already though at that office is like that. It's already like there's already cohesion.
Hmm.
I don't know, maybe that's how you guys have it like set up and whatever, but I walked in there and I could already tell like, oh, this is like it's a well-oiled machine already.
Hmm.
And so like and over the 5 months that I've been there, I've seen them like really prioritize like personality connection versus all the other things outside of that, like the business aspect of it or
Hmm.
whatever. And so like I'm not gonna be the one to rock that boat,
Right, right.
like I'm just gonna see like how can I add to this. And so
Hmm.
I go around, I get to know my coworkers, and I buy them food because food is always good.
Of
Like I feel
course.
like that really helps people feel more comfortable and
Right.
stuff.
Well, tension between I would say
Mhm.
assistants and hygienists is pretty common.
Correct. Hmm.
So what have you seen as far as that goes, and then
Hmm.
maybe what do you do to help avoid it? If
Ooh.
you were to give somebody advice,
Mm.
like going into a new office and let's say there is tension, what would
Yeah.
you tell that person? How would you tell that person to act?
Ooh. I think my number one thing first is to understand like where they're coming from. Like why are they acting a certain way, before I like tell them what to do or
Sure.
whatever. Just see first like how are they understanding a certain scenario.
Hmm.
So ask questions, and then from that, before I try to explain my side, I empathize. Oh, okay, no, I see. I can understand like why, like why you did what you did. And then I share my side. And like I honestly, like, I don't even try to use like big words and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And so far it's worked, I think. you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
What?
try to learn their side too, like especially DAs. I try to like learn. Well, I was a dental assistant for a long time too, so I think I'm pretty fortunate. Like I have that experience, and
Mhm.
so I try to like help as much as I can, with their side.
Would you say
Mhm.
that like lack of helping with instruments is the biggest point of contention?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
How
Mhm.
how can how can both sides handle that so to
Ooh,
avoid it?
mhm. I remember there was a time that like there's this one dental assistant I was working with, and she like would constantly send text messages to the group chat that, oh, like we're a team, like please like help out with the instruments and whatever. And I remember saying to one of my teammates, like, I think it's so quick for any person to go into this mentality like, or they're not helping. And I feel like what we should be focusing on is like, oh, they're busy. No one's doing it intentionally.
Mhm.
They're really just stuck in a room, or they're stuck with a patient. No one's like actively thinking like, oh, I'm not gonna help out in this department. Oh, there's instruments there, I'm not gonna clean it. Like I don't think people have that kind of, if you're in dentistry, there's no way you're gonna be like that type of person.
Mhm.
And so like perspective first, like okay, they're just probably busy before I start like getting upset. And then so I just start with that,
Right.
just seeing their side again.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think part of it too is knowing that that's an issue just
Yeah,
by
awareness,
default.
yeah. Hmm.
And if you do have the time,
Mm-hmm.
make the right choice
Right.
and help.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you don't even have to like do everything all at once. You know, like put one instrument in a bag. If there's like 10 sets of instruments there, put one in a bag. You know, and then go back to your, at least the next person when they come in, now there's just 4 sets of instruments. You know, you just kind of like tackle it like bit by bit, I guess, like little pieces,
Yeah.
as opposed to like looking at everything and being like, there's so many, I'm running behind. Like, no, like don't overwhelm yourself that way. Like you're helping, as long as you're helping, like the simple help that you're giving is already big enough, like in a grand, like at a bigger perspective, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we can talk about patients for a little bit.
Okay.
How do you approach, say you have a new patient, you have 90 minutes. How are you approaching that appointment and the patient interaction and the dialogue? Like what's your approach?
Well, first off, I'm like happy that I have 90 minutes for a patient. So that like that's a good amount of time, you know. Like the first part is like I introduce myself. Well, I get to know them, you know, I ask their names and then I get to know them. I introduce myself and I kind of walk them through how the visit would look like, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to just like start putting things inside their mouth, like taking extras and all that stuff. And then yeah, and I kind of just like walk them through each procedure I'm doing.
Try to get them comfortable.
Yeah, to get them comfortable. Yeah, and then I get to know them on a personal level. I'm big on that though. Like I'm big on like really getting to know people on a personal level. I think it breaks down a lot of walls, you know, and the people coming in already not happy about being in the dental office. And so the more they feel like you're a friend to them, I think that's gonna really help like make the entire visit be pleasurable, you know, from their side.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're just basically getting to know them in the very beginning. Then while you're taking x-rays and like setting up, doing work, you're talking to
I'm
them
talking,
the whole time?
Yeah.
Got it.
Like you get like body language, you know, like you gotta like kind of see if they're chatty, chat with them, you know, if they prefer, like you can tell anyway, like when you've been doing this job for so long, like you can eventually like understand like how, like the types of people, you know, knowing the disc type, that's something I learned before, like that helps so much, you know. Yeah.
Let's say you take the x-rays and you're starting to like discuss the treatment plan with them. I know you've been in dentistry for a long time, but let's say somebody's newer to dentistry or newer hygienists. Like we just hired 10 graduates last year and then hopefully like another 5 or so from this class.
Yeah.
But anyway, say you have a new hygienist or even new assistant, new doctor coming in.
Yeah.
How did you get comfortable speaking to patients with confidence?
Yeah. So I think that's a great question, because now I gotta like kind of take myself out of like the years of experience I have. I will say like just look within you, like your experience in your own life, you know, like when you're brushing and flossing, how does that affect your health? You know, don't even like think about like the stuff that we learned in school, even though it is vital, but just look at it from your perspective. You know, when you're brushing and flossing, how is that affecting your health? You know, I don't think I've ever met anyone that have told me I am brushing with an electric toothbrush 3 times a day, flossing properly and everything, and they have 10 cavities. So just know that what you're doing works. Know that what you learned in school, it works. It actually works. I don't think I've ever met any patients that when they have like properly placed sealants have cavities under them, you know, like the dentistry works. Like people that are way smarter than us did this already, did their research, have all the background in dentistry, and now they're sharing me this very important like information. Know that that works. Also trusting your doctors. Like it's so important to me that to work for doctors that are great. I cannot work for doctors that I feel like, you know, like as soon as I see something, I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna match, you know.
What are you looking for in a doctor to show that trust?
Yeah. The main thing that I like really look for, once I hear them say, I will do this treatment on my mother, or like I will never do this treatment on my own mother, like I already know, okay, this doctor has like integrity, you know, like, so that's like my major thing, you know. And that's like I will listen every single doctor I've actually worked with. That's their major thing in common.
Mm-hmm.
And I see them, like I see their work. I look at their X-rays that they take and whatever. And so,
Right.
yeah, like trust your doctors. Like it's not. People say like being dental hygienist, like you have so much like autonomy,
Mm-hmm.
like you're working on your own. Like to a degree, that's true, but it's a team sport. Like that's how I see it, and as long as like you're working for a great dentist, you're gonna be fine.
Mm-hmm.
You can trust that whatever you're doing for a patient, it works, and then you'll just have the confidence to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not talking about weird things to them. You're not presenting,
Sure.
like things that they don't need.
Right.
You know.
Let's say that a dentist and a hygienist are not on the same page yet
Mhm.
for like what a perio patient is.
Yeah.
How do you get on the same page
Mhm.
with guidelines?
Guidelines. Great question. Well, number one is that you got to go with your doctor. That's the dentist, like you're at the end of the day, just for legality purposes, like you work
Mhm.
under a doctor. But after that, like if you want to just set it aside, like have a conversation with your doctor, and like and be prepared, like go do your research, print out some, print out some the guidelines from like ADA or like
Mhm.
all that stuff, and then just meet with them. But I think before you can even do that, that's why I always say like be friends, like make them your friends, like get to know them before you can't just come in and be like, doctor, this is wrong, blah 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 blah, and like literally you're not like you don't even have that connection,
Mhm.
So like that's like really important for me. But yeah,
Right.
like know your stuff, like be prepared, go to your doctor, like doctor, like this part kind of like confused me, because according to this is like this,
Mhm.
but this was the treatment plan, more on like you're asking questions, you're getting to understand as opposed to like telling them this is wrong.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
For sure.
Okay, cool.
No, that's awesome. So let's say going back to like treatment planning.
Mhm,
Let's say you're a new hygienist.
mhm,
Patient needs SRPs.
mhm.
It's a more difficult conversation than just see you in 6 months for your next cleaning.
Yeah.
How do you again get that confidence to talk to the patient
Mhm.
about their treatment?
Okay. I'm just gonna use like real life examples.
Sure.
Okay, like how I would like really do it. I don't use big. One of my main things. I don't use big words. Like this is a patient that did not go to dental school, so I will make it to where I will use words that they already know. If and I'm big on visuals too. I take pictures. I use X-rays, and I show them like how everything looks like. I love having those like boards that has like all that there's a tooth there, there's like a measurement, there are probing
Mhm.
like pockets and all that stuff. Like I love visuals, using visual aids, and again just trusting that it works. The treatment you're going to present to them, it works, even if that's going to be the first SRP you'll ever do as a dental hygienist. Know that there's so many people that already came before you that have done their research. They know that this works, so you're just basically like sharing information that so many people have already done their work on.
Mhm.
Like you're not making up stuff. I always say that I'm not making up stuff.
Mhm.
And then like if there's an infection, I use the word infection. If they need antibiotic, I don't use the brand names or whatever. I let them know like, you're gonna need a antibiotic, because people already know that when they go to a medical doctor and they're not feeling good. Oh, you have an infection. Here's an antibiotic.
Mhm.
I just try to like not use like big dental terminology.
Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
How do you overcome knowing that a patient is like for SRPs is going to have
Mhm.
to pay out of pocket? And let's say you like are feeling bad about
Mhm.
just from talking to the patient, they're telling you stories, whatever.
Yeah.
You feel guilty, but this is the treatment they need.
Yeah.
How do you overcome
Yeah,
that
man, I
money
will
issue?
tell you something. I don't look at the dollar amount of a procedure. I really don't.
Mhm.
For me, it's the value of the treatment that they're gonna get.
Mhm.
Patients, if they need a heart transplant, you think their doctors are thinking about the price of a heart transplant? They
Mhm.
don't. They think about saving this person's life.
Mhm.
And it's so funny because like that's how I look at dentistry and dental hygiene. We're saving lives. Like I'm big on like relating your oral health with systemic diseases. Because the more you do this, you'll realize like, oh my god, the correlation is so close. High blood pressure is there, obviously, like for many reasons, but a big thing is that your oral health, if you have so much plaque bacteria in your mouth, your blood pressure is going to rise. So I really don't look at the dollar amount. I put value on the treatment. I know this treatment will help this person, and at the end of the day, this will save this person's life.
Mhm.
And so that's how I think of it.
Gotcha.
If it's important, it's important.
Mhm.
you know
Do you have any advice talking about like the length of appointment time now? And let's
hmm
say a doctor was running late coming in to see you, or the patient was super chatty and you're running behind.
hmm
How do you have advice on time management?
Time management. So, well, one thing is you have to be like develop your skill, like time yourself. Like I'm not trying to compete with anybody, but I've gotten myself to a level that when I take an FMX is under like 4 minutes. 5 is when they're like really, really chatty.
Hmm.
But I can usually complete an FMX in like under 4 minutes. My scan, the scanning a patient,
Hmm.
I try to be under 3 minutes for that one. Sometimes I can get to two. So get good at your skill, like practice, like really invest in yourself because you're going to be doing this for a really long time.
Hmm.
And the last thing you want is to constantly tell another patient, because it's a ripple effect in a dental hygienist schedule. Last thing you want is to be so behind that now you're taking away time from yourself.
Hmm.
Obviously it's going to happen. You're going to be late here and there. Now when you bring your next patient in, you just tell them like, hey, I appreciate you waiting. Thank you for waiting.
Hmm.
Like, but yeah, like get good at your skills. Those little things like make a big difference.
How long do you
Yeah.
think that took you after you got your hygiene license?
Hmm. um like not even a year. Like
Hmm.
yeah, just didn't take me that long.
Hmm.
But I'm pretty good at investing in myself though.
Hmm.
I really like bet on myself and doing things and being good at things.
What type of
Yeah.
CE can people take
Yeah.
to get better?
Get better.
Hmm.
So again, number one is like the CE for the relation of systemic diseases to your oral health, because I think it's like like the how you view dental hygiene makes like how the importance you put in your job makes a big difference in what you're gonna do after that. Like for me, I know my job is so important, and that's why I do all these other things. I watch YouTube videos, like how do I make myself quicker at doing this and that. Like how do I, like, what's the best position when I want to scale and I want to be better at scaling. you know but I got to that point because I put value in what I do.
Hmm.
And so just know that you're not just cleaning teeth, like you're saving lives again. Like
Sure.
you're really helping people. And then that's it, like you research on it. You do the same thing with when you want to know how to put on makeup.
Hmm.
You go on TikTok, you go on YouTube videos, you learn from other people.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Are you seeing, because of the crunch for hygienists right now,
Mm-hmm.
that maybe people are trying go into hygiene school for maybe the wrong reasons other than what you're talking about, just because it pays so well right now?
Hmm. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If if you were if you were going to give any advice on you're thinking of going into hygiene school, like
Mm-hmm.
what should those people's thoughts be?
Okay. Because the thing is, like, I didn't start like in the dental field or hygiene field like with passion, because I didn't even really literally think of it. It was more a necessity. But working with people that are really good in dentistry, you will fall in love with it. And so, like, I'm very fortunate that I really fell in love with the field that I'm in. I really felt so. It's like, if this is not something that you're gonna be falling in love with, yeah, please don't do it, because patients matter. The dental health really matters.
Hmm.
Now, if you're like, okay, I'm not too sure, that's okay. That's okay. If you're a hard no, don't. if you're like, well, I'm not too sure, go for it. It's not. It's
Mhm.
still worth it. It's still worth putting your feet in there and like experiencing it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I've always wondered this because dentistry is a numbers game, right? Like
Mhm.
it's very repetitive. You're seeing like if you don't have any new patients, you see 8 new patients a day. They're hour
Mhm.
long, and you do this kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
How do you get over it being repetitive but still be so interested and
Interesting. Yeah.
invested in it?
Isn't it? Yeah. Well, every patient you see, they're not the same.
Mhm.
They all have their own lives. They all have their own stories, and so it's not. I don't know. It's not repetitive to me.
That's
And I've
awesome.
been doing this for a long time. And it's not repetitive to me. Like I feel like I meet different people. Also, it's so exciting when I meet new patients. I remember telling like one of our front staff, like, hey, like when can I see more new patients? Because when you meet new patients and a lot of them have like anxiety, dental anxiety, it takes like it feels so good when you um even patients that have been coming in regularly and then
Mhm.
they get to know me as like their new hygienist now. They're like, oh my God, like that was such a fun experience. I'm like, okay, thank you. Like you gotta take your wins in that aspect. And then the other parts is just a skill that you're doing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
So let's say you have brand new hygienist or an assistant.
Yeah.
It's their first day
Mm-hmm.
of work.
Mm-hmm.
What advice are you telling them? Like you're in charge of training them.
I'm in charge of training them.
Mhm.
Okay. This is also how like I like learn new skills for myself. Okay. Like do like little pieces. Okay. You don't have to learn this entire thing this one day. Like for this hour, just learn what the numbers mean. Like break it down to where it's a lot easier for you to remember what these things are for. Because if you're already looking at like day one, you need to be already assisting the doctor. Like you're setting your own self
Mhm.
to not be successful.
Mhm.
Like first day, like watch how other people do it. Listen for like verbiage. Or like maybe first day, take pictures, learn how to take intraoral pictures and look at just stuff like that, little things.
Mhm.
And then because you're not going to get hired literally not knowing anything in like you already
Sure.
have a background in it.
Mhm.
So just apply little things on a daily basis, and then now at some point you're going to be knowing everything already.
Mhm.
Mhm.
What would you say to somebody who they say, I'm a hygienist or
Mhm.
I'm assistant, I'm a receptionist, I can't really make an impact on the office?
Not true. That is like, I don't know why people would think that way though. It's like you your everyone's voice matters. And like it's and that remember when I said about how there's a separation between the dentist and then the hygiene side.
Mhm.
It's like I don't believe in that. Like it's an office. It's this office, and these are the patients that come into this office. And so, who are the people that makes this office run?
Mhm.
So yeah, no, it's like no, everyone's important.
Yeah, for sure.
I can be going over treatment, like checking in a patient, printing out the treatment plan, running to the back, doing the treatment, checking them out, cleaning my room. That's not real. I don't know if there's any practice that actually functions that way, but
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. You're important. That person is important. That's
Right.
what I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, again, I wanted to thank you
Yeah.
for coming on here
Yeah.
and for already making an impact
Yeah.
at that
Thank
office, even though
you.
you said it was a well-oiled machine. Like
Mm-hmm.
you've come in and you've helped really bring it, I think, to the next level.
Yeah.
And
Aw.
that office is moving, so there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of transition going there.
Yeah.
So I really look forward to continue working with you, and
Thank you.
I think a lot of
Yeah.
people can learn a lot from you. So
Appreciate that, Matt.
thank you
Yeah.
so
I hope I
much.
get to like meet more people in our company and just
For
see.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, if you keep sacrificing your Fridays,
Yeah.
we'll make it
I can.
happen.
Yeah.
All right.
That's
Thank you
cool.
so
Yeah.
much.
Oh, okay. You're welcome.